Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all well on this fine Friday. Yes, it is Friday. So this morning I was recording some Warcraft 3 videos for the weekend, and during the record I started talking about corruption versus Titanforging, and it got to the point where I was like, why don't I just make a video on this? Because it's actually quite an interesting subject. I'll get this out of the way to begin with. The sad truth is, I actually think both systems could have been very viable in their own right. But, like many systems used over the years, it was poorly implemented, and so ends up paying the price for its greater sins, and is abandoned. So, we're going to look at the two systems, the pros and cons, and we're going to kick this off with Titanforging and Warforging, the older of the two systems. For those unaware, maybe you stopped playing WoW, this was a system that meant items could far exceed their original item level. You could also gain extra traits, avoidance, leech, whatever. And if we look at the pros and cons, we're going to look at eye level ignored normal player boundaries. This was the big thing for Titanforging. It meant players could redo easier content and have a chance at getting far greater eye level gear than would normally be rewarded, therefore keeping content active and relevant and fresh. An example would be LFR could turn into heroic raid gear, or world quests becoming mythic item level. I hate to say it, but that was where the pro to Titanforging Warforging ends. It was also the biggest con. It was the biggest problem with it. Now let's look at the cons. Apart from that being, as I say, the biggest one there was, why push raiding when heroic is very much easier and the gear you can get Titanforges? If I'm a normal raider, why would I step up and do heroic, potentially getting better gear, when I can just run a lot of normal, which is far easier, and get heroic gear, potentially mythic gear? You and a friend, okay, so you're actually in the raid, and a bit of gear drops, and you get a bit, and your friend gets a bit. But yet, there's Titanforged and Warforged, and all of a sudden yours doesn't feel so good. You worked your arse off to get this bit of gear, and just in pure RNG, they got something better than yours, and yours now feels pointless. It doesn't feel like the reward it should do. It created RNG in a world that really doesn't need any more RNG. We have enough of it. The basic idea of Titanforging is good. It feels the need for casual players to keep being able to do things and have a chance at a nice reward. So even if all you ever do in WoW is world quests, it's all you do on your various ults, and you maybe could get gear upgrades, which in modern WoW is the way players gauge their progress. Not ahead of the curve, not Raider IO, not eye level, but the silent masses. Those casual players that literally what they do is world quests on ults and go back and do old stuff. That's a big thing. It's an easy thing to look at. Ooh, a new item level piece. I want to put that in. It was a really good system for players that didn't raid or players that don't do M+. And I imagine that most of them would say, we really like Titanforging. It was a good system. I know people in my guild who are just casual, just chill, don't want to do raiding, don't want to do like M+. They liked the system. It was good. But now let's look at what replaced it, and that is corruption, which sits at completely, I would say, other end of the spectrum. Almost as a middle finger to raiders and mythic players who had issues with the RNG of Titanforging. Again, for those that don't know what corruption is an effect on an item which, it's almost like a trinket proc. It comes with a downside, it comes with this corruption because N'Alotha's been released. And this ties into the new cloak and the new systems that we have in 8.3. The cloak offsets the corruption, and the higher the level, and it balances out. So basically you have a load of corruption, and the cloak will have protection for that corruption. And it's a risk reward. You can pile up the corruption to have all these powers that you've got, but you'll have weird demons chasing you and eyeballs appearing and all sorts of crazy stuff. Now I said before that this was a middle finger to Raiders and Mythic Plus guys. And I'll be honest, I don't believe that this was too far from the truth. Eye level is unchanging now. It's what people wanted. I just want, if I get an item, I want to know what that item is, and I'm happy. But an item that drops without corruption is basically worthless now. People don't go and get these corruption cleansed. Instead, it's just, okay, well that's pointless now, and such got infinite stars, or whatever the next, the big thing is. Great, that's fantastic. For instance, I have a 440 item on my Warlock. And it sims worse than a 410 I've got that has stars corruption on it. Which goes against everything Blizzard said about, we want item level to be, we want it easy for people to understand. So let's look at the pros and cons again. Like all these systems, the pros and cons do tend to bleed into one another. So if I say something that I'm saying is a pro, you might go, I don't think that is. Generally, we'll cover it later on. So eye level is king again. For many, this is important. Not for high-end plus or mythic raiders. I want to get that out there first. Their gear just comes. I've said this numerous times. M plus players, and as in, we're talking high, like guys who do 20 keys. We're talking about mythic raiders at the high level. They get bukakied in loot. So they're going to get all these different things. So eye level isn't king to them. Completing difficult content is where their joy comes from. I'm sure we've all seen it during World First races, or just watching your favourite streamer, who happens to be, you know, a mythic raider. They will quite happily drop 10 item levels if it means that what they've got is going to work better on the fight they're about to do. They have no issue with that. The people that this change is important to are those players who are always like, you don't do it so you don't need it. Or the classic life, you need to get good. It's those people that this works for. They need item level to be important, and corruption does that. And then poops all over it again by making corruption the important factor, not eye level. Oh, you've got a really high item level, but you don't have any of the good traits? Well, I'm afraid the guy in heroic gear actually has all of the best corruption, and he's now going to guaranteed to smash your DPS. There is nothing you can do about it. Also, what corruption does is it creates an interesting playstyle. Swapping in and out different corruption, equipping more and more of it as you gain more protection, maybe risking a ton of corruption to smash crazy DPS numbers, giving players options is good. Letting us pick and choose what we want to do is good. Yeah, that's all good stuff. It makes you feel like I actually have control over my character. You know, the same as when I'm picking my talents. Yes, there's a cookie cutter, but I can balance these things out, and as I gain more power in my cloak, I get to add more corruption pieces, and it feels good. It feels like I have at least some control in a very RNG system. The cons are, I imagine anybody that's seen the World First race, blatant. They're too powerful. Corruption is crazy, crazy powerful. Just having certain items equipped guarantee before the mob is pulled that you will out DPS anybody that doesn't have them. No amount of min-maxing, no amount of amazing plays, doesn't matter if you time it just crisp and just good. That person that's got the corruption items, they will beat you, and there is nothing you can do about it. It is the ultimate haves and have-nots. Those that have all these things will love it. Those that don't will hate it. The next con, and this is going to sound like a strange one, but it doesn't affect casual players at all. Now, to a lot of people, that's going to sound really strange. Why is that a con? So, Titanforging and Warforging helped the casual player base, but the sad side effect of it was it bled into raiding, it bled into Mythic Plus player base, which was the big problem with it. Which is why it became an issue. Titanforging and Warforging was stopped, or had it stopped at normal raiding level, I don't think there would have been a problem. If the raiding item level, or normal raiding item level, had been where that was as high as you could go on your, your World Quest item could never go above that, I don't think people would have had the problem that they had with Titanforging. Now, the reason I say corruption not affecting the casual player base is a problem is because if corruption means nothing, then upgrading your cloak means nothing. Once you hit 440 eye level, which is not hard, that's pretty much where everybody sits once you've done all your quests and you've done a couple of, the Oldham and Vale zones, you can solo a 2 million HP boss easy. It's not a problem. So why do I need to do Horrific Visions? Why do I need to collect coins from the dailies? Now, casual player base is not engaged. Well, I don't even do half this stuff, so a lot of this content has disappeared. I don't need to do Horrific Visions if I don't want to. I don't like it. So large parts of the content now are just abandoned. Now, many will sit there and think, well, so what? Leave them to it, or the Get Good Brigade. But they don't want to do it. It's not, what? So what? Fuck them. But my little friend, the casual keeps the lights on in the Blizzard office. You lose them and you have problems. I have played many MMOs that have died because of that. You don't need to cater to the casual player base. Much as you love it or hate it, it's a simple reality of the world we live in. Now, neither of those systems are bad. Granted, they bring too much RNG into the game that needs far less. I would love a time when I could maybe pick what was the best gear I could hope to get, be it normal raiding, heroic raiding, whatever it was, and I could pick items from M+, these things that I wanted to cherry pick, and I knew they were BIS until the next patch. It sounds crazy and simple, but that's what I would love. I struggle at times to understand why tier sets died when I compare them to what we currently have. I would have it back in a heartbeat. Granted, it needs to be tweaked, and I've spoken before about having a Raider set and a M+ set and so on and so forth to keep the tier set bonuses interesting and keep people collecting them if they wanted. Like the island expeditions, like Warfronts, like Garrisons, Scenarios, to name but a few. Blizzard have good ideas that they didn't implement, as I said before, really poorly. And then when we as a community speak out and weigh in on ideas and things like that, Blizzard weigh these things down with bricks and chuck it off the end of a pier, never to be seen again. If they had done that with challenge mode, we wouldn't have seen M+, which is a new viable way of gearing up high-end outside of raiding, which is fantastic. Corruption and Titanforging are not to survive BFA. We don't know for sure what is on the horizon in Shadowlands. I, for one, would be happy with our new Covenant ability and gear that is just gear. Crazy, I know. But that doesn't mean these ideas should all go into body bags and be thrown underneath this pier. Alpha and Beta are truly a time to test new systems, test these new ideas. The PTR is a great idea to test these new ideas. Work with the community, Blizzard. Work with us. Put these ideas up there. Work with the very best players, work with the very worst players, work with all of us in between. Then the game gets better. Then we start having good ideas. And the good ideas that Blizzard are having, we can help tweak them. We can try and help balance them. Crazy, no, isn't it? Maybe using the community and working together. That'll never catch on. Now that is me done, ladies and gentlemen. I am done for the day. I will catch you all on Monday. Over the weekend, 2 Warcraft 3 videos will be going up. And if you listen real closely, you will hear where I had the idea for this video and completely stop talking about it straight away. But that's me done. I hope you all have a great weekend, everyone. And I'll catch you all later.